date was September 23rd, 1908. The first-place Giants were facing the second-place Cubs for the last time that season at the Polo Grounds in New York. It was the bottom of the ninth. The score was tied 1-1. There was one out. Cubs second baseman Johnny Evers explained what happened next to Chicago Daily News sports writer John Carmichael.
Devlin singled and McCormick slashed one right at me. It was just slow enough, so the best tinkering I could do was get Devlin at second. Still, there were two gone. Up came Merkle. Well, he singled and McCormick went to third. Al Bridwell was the next hitter and signaled to center. That's where the fun began.
McCormick touched home plate and the crowd emptied out onto the field, but the play was not technically over yet. In those days, a run was not officially recorded if a force out was still possible. Senator Solly Hoffman had the ball in his hands. Johnny Evers had an idea.
I had my eye on Merkle, saw him stop, glance around, the fans pouring out of their seats, and start for the clubhouse beyond right field. I called for the ball, but Hoffman's throw went over Tinker's head and rolled over to where Joe McGinnity, the Giants' pitcher, was standing. Joe'd been coaching third, and he knew that what was in our minds as Tinker and I raced for the ball. He got it first, but before he could rid of the thing, Joe and I wrestled him to the ground. He broke loose and heaved the ball into the crowd.
The crowd, it should be noted, was the biggest of the season. The pennant was at stake in this game, and the Giants' crowds were well known for their riotous behavior. Thousands of them were on the field celebrating what they thought was a victory. Johnny Evers described what happened next.
I can still see the fellow who caught that ball. A tall, stringy, middle-aged gent with a brown bowler hat on. Our third baseman, Harry Steinfeld, and Floyd Crow, a young pitcher we added to our staff during the summer, raced after him. "Give me the ball a minute," Steinfeld begged the fan. "I'll bring it right back." The guy wouldn't let go, and suddenly Crow solved the problem. He hit the customer right on top of that stiff hat, drove it down over his eyes. As the gent folded up, the ball fell free and Crow got it. I was yelling and waving my hands out the second base, and Tinker relayed it over to me, and I stepped on the bag and made sure the umpire O'Day saw me do it. O'Day had seen Merkle run to the clubhouse, and he said, "The run doesn't count! The run doesn't count!" As the raging mob shrieked, struck at him, pulled him, and threatened his life.
After narrowly escaping with his life, Hank O'Day declared the game a tie. The native Chicagoan had saved the pennant for the Cubs. Johnny Evers gives all the credit to him.
O'Day could have ended the trouble with a word and given New York the pennant, and no one would have said a thing. He knew the National League wanted New York to win. He knew the Giants ought to have won, and that the hit was clean and one that deserved to bring home the winning run. But he stood firm.
It was a technicality, but the National League president, Harry Pulliam, backed him up and ordered the game to be replayed only if it was needed. It was. The two teams ended the season tied. The win that was taken away from the Giants by Harry Pulliam had cost them the pennant. The game was replayed at the Polo Grounds, but by then Christy Mathewson's arm was tired, and the Cubs won the game easily. The World Series was anticlimactic after that. The Cubs had little trouble dispatching the Detroit Tigers for the second year in a row in front of the smallest crowd in World Series history. In the eyes of many people at the time, that championship came with an asterisk. It was won on a technicality. 2 lives were shattered. The bad karma that followed cannot be denied. Fred Merkle, the rookie whose only sin was not touching second base because he wanted to escape the rioting mob, was called Boner, or Bonehead, the rest of his life. He had a good major league career, 16 years, but he would always be reminded of that Boner moment. Even in death, it was one of the lead sentences in his obituary. National League President Harry Pulliam was berated so badly and so harshly by everyone from the press to the fans that on July 28, 1909, less than a year after the famed Merkle game, he returned to his room at the New York Athletic Club and took his own life. The Cubs have not won a World Series since.